They won't spare me. I was the only one who followed Alex. The streetlights illuminated the bleak scene in the neighborhood. A car slowly rolled to a stop. A man, seemingly in a hurry, was walking briskly along the sidewalk while looking at his phone, passing by the parked car. A sudden gunshot rang out, waking the entire neighborhood in the night, filled with panic and fear. The man on the sidewalk suddenly fell, writhing in pain, trying to turn around to see who wanted to kill him, but it was in vain. A man, dressed in black and fully covered, stepped out of the car and walked over to his prey, firing another fatal shot into his heart, causing blood to splatter onto the assassin's coat. The victim lost all consciousness. The killer bent down, snatched Alex's phone, and pocketed it. The scream from a nearby homeless man was abruptly cut off by the threatening barrel of the gun. Terrified, the man covered his mouth as the murderer calmly climbed back into the car. The vehicle drove off, leaving a lifeless body on the street. At 1:45 a.m., in the dispatch room at the Atlanta City Police Headquarters, the phone rang. The shaky, elderly voice of a homeless man called from a public phone booth, terrified as he began reporting a crime. A stranger had been shot dead on the street just a few minutes ago, at an intersection near the main road on the western edge of the city. An investigation team was immediately dispatched along with an ambulance and a doctor. The police quickly arrived at the scene. The injured man was still lying there at the scene. The doctor rushed down from the ambulance to check on the situation, but there was nothing they could do. The victim had already passed away beforehand. The crime scene tape and warning lights were quickly set up. The homeless people scattered around earlier had mostly evacuated. The houses next to the scene were eerily silent. Anxious residents cautiously peeked through their windows in the darkness of their rooms, barely visible through the dim glow of the streetlights. The crime scene felt oppressive and filled with tension. One bullet struck the spine at the 10th vertebra, while the other hit the heart with precise accuracy. The perpetrator wanted to ensure the victim would die. This was a deliberate, premeditated murder, carefully planned. It can be concluded that the killer was a professional marksman, using the gun with the skill level of a national athlete. With such proficiency, if they aren't a shooting instructor or athlete, then they are certainly an extremely dangerous criminal from the underworld. 2 9mm shell casings were found around the crime scene. 2 shots hit the target. The police collected the 2 shell casings as evidence and searched for additional traces around the area. But the killer acted too cleanly, leaving no other clues behind. Upon examining the victim's body, they found identification papers and a phone. According to the information retrieved, the victim was named Alexander Hernander, 33 years old. A company ID card in his wallet indicated that he was an employee of a car company in the city and lived in Atlanta. The crime scene was about 8 kilometers east of his home. The question now is, what was he doing in such an unfamiliar and deserted neighborhood at this hour? Marcus Johnson and his partner, Lisa Moore, are the 2 detectives primarily responsible for the case. The phone found next to the body was handed over to Marcus. It was confirmed to be the victim's personal item and was unlocked with a fingerprint. The contact list and messages of the victim were checked one by one. Preliminary investigation information revealed that he had contacted his wife, Lily, 12 minutes before the tragedy occurred. Before calling his wife, he had 2 other friends he spoke to, with the call taking place in the afternoon at 5:40 p.m., likely after he finished work at the company. The homeless man, a witness, was still scared about his decision and dared only to watch from a distance. He just wanted to avoid being retaliated against and tried to dodge as the police approached him. But he remained there until Marcus walked over. "I don't know anything. I was just sleeping and heard the gunshots. When I woke up, I saw him lying on the ground. A man in all black got out of a nearby car and shot him again. He died right after that. I was terrified, but he pointed the gun at me, so I stayed silent, and then he left in that direction." The man said this while pointing in the direction the car had gone. Marcus carefully noted everything down. "Do you remember the type of car or its license plate?" "No, I couldn't think of anything until he was completely gone. He is extremely dangerous. I didn't see his face, but I could feel it. He could do anything." Marcus looked back at the crime scene once again. The perpetrator acted in a place that was not entirely deserted when the car stopped. He knew there were many witnesses nearby who directly witnessed the crime, yet he still struck decisively. The fact that the homeless man was a witness and managed to escape could be because the killer didn't want to harm anyone else. However, it's more likely that he was contemptuous of their presence and was challenging the investigation team. He had a clear, intelligent, dangerous, and provocative plan. The case had become much more complicated than initially thought. After the crime scene investigation, the police informed the victim's family. Marcus and Lisa went to his house to gather more clues. Alex lived with his wife, and they had a 3-year-old son. Lily opened the door for the police to enter the house, which was small and tidy, with the child soundly asleep on the couch, his arm in a cast. Marcus and Lisa sat down on the couch and looked around the room. Yesterday, Alex had a gathering at a relative's house. Then, because he was drunk and it was late, he decided to go to his parents' house to stay overnight and return in the morning. But our son suddenly developed a fever. He fell and broke his arm at school 2 days ago. I was very scared, so I informed him, which is probably why he came back at midnight. When Lisa asked about Alex's other relationships, his wife seemed to know very little. Alex was a hot-headed person who often liked to meddle in others' affairs, which is why Lily often complained, and as a result, he no longer shared what was happening with her. She only knew that her husband had recently had a conflict with someone due to personal issues. But despite asking many times, Alex still wouldn't reveal anything. Although he doesn't tell me, he has a close friend he's known since childhood. They often talk to each other, so he might share something with him. After Lily provided the address of Davis, Alex's closest friend, the police immediately went to see him. Davis was working at an auto repair shop and was shocked and devastated when the police informed him about his friend's death. Once he stabilized, Davis began to provide the police with essential and very important information. I don't know too much. Although he often confides in me, Alex always reminds me and forbids me from getting involved in that world. He doesn't want me to go through the troubles he's facing. Then he began to reveal the truth about his friend. Alex had been involved with a gang for a long time, even before he started dating Lily and marrying her. Lily had no idea about this. Alex was very good at disguising his life, so the injuries Lily mentioned whenever Alex came home hurt were all fabricated stories. In reality, they were battles between gangs. Recently, Alex had wanted to withdraw from that world, but they didn't agree. That's why his young child had a broken arm. They were very ruthless to go after a 3-year-old child. It was like a warning to him that they wouldn't allow him to do that. Without protection from the organization, Alex had more enemies targeting him. One prominent figure he mentioned frequently was described as dangerous and unpredictable. Davis only knew that he led a fairly large gang and was commonly referred to by the nickname Big D. The case took a major turn that no one could have anticipated. Alexander had concealed his identity, and what was happening so well that it opened a vast door full of dangers related to gang factions and the underground world, which law enforcement everywhere is struggling against. In addition, Davis provided another clue about one of Alex's associates. This person was quite close to Alex and was a trusted gopher. However, because he was loyal to Alex, he was also heavily affected after Alex decided to leave the gang. This person is named Leo Miller. He was just arrested a few days ago for his involvement in a violent incident on the street. There are suspicions that the cause of this violence is related to the gang behind Alex's death. Immediately interrogate this individual. Leo Miller was brought into the interrogation room in a state of confusion. He had no idea what the police had discovered and still tried to keep all his secrets until he heard about Alex's death. He felt completely disoriented and began to panic, thinking that he would be killed just like Alex. They won't spare me. I was the only one who followed Alex. I shouldn't have done that. In the end, they killed him, and now there's no one to protect me. Finally, after regaining some calm, Leo began to reveal what he knew in exchange for police protection, and the police agreed. Under Leo's testimony, the identity of Big D began to emerge. He is the leader of the most notorious gang in Tucker, But after being suppressed, he moved to Atlanta last year and started establishing his own gang. This encroached on the interests of the gangs in Atlanta, leading to an outbreak of conflict. However, Big D was too powerful. He had almost taken over a quarter of the territory in the city. Notably, Big D does not trust anyone. He lives alone in a modest little house in the west of the city. Marcus immediately contacted the Tucket police to gather more information about Big D, while also deploying patrol units to monitor the area around the address Leo provided. Soon after, the Tucket police responded. The Tucket police had not yet identified Big D's gang or the rival group that suppressed him, but the name matched the alias of a serial killer with attention-seeking and antisocial tendencies, an individual with a high IQ who is currently being pursued by the authorities. The number of his victims has already exceeded 10, with the most recent case occurring over 2 weeks ago. Each time he kills, he leaves behind a clue or a witness, a challenge from a man who is out of control and reckless. The case had transformed into a deadly battleground that the police would continue until they captured him. A new war had begun. There is no specific facial sketch of him yet. Although witnesses have seen him, he is always fully covered, wearing a hat and a mask. His build matches the description of Big D provided by both witnesses and Leo in Atlanta. If this is the case, he would be both a highly skilled, high IQ serial killer and the leader of a powerful criminal gang. The police departments from both cities immediately held an urgent meeting to exchange all available information to capture the criminal and dismantle his gang, a challenge from a man who is out of control and reckless. The case had transformed into a deadly battleground that the police would continue until they captured him. A new war had begun. Following the address, the police traced the house, which had been purchased under the name of a person named Henry Jones from Tucker. The police proceeded to surround the house and execute a surprise attack. This encroached on the interests of the gangs in Atlanta, leading to an outbreak of conflict. However, Big D was too powerful. He had almost taken over a quarter of the territory in the city. Notably, Big D does not trust anyone. He lives alone in a modest little house in the west of the city. It was unusual to see the front door wide open and the curtains flapping outside in the wind. Was it a peculiar habit of a criminal, or yet another provocation from a cunning offender? The task force began their tactical raid plan into the house, but ultimately the criminal had vanished without a trace. The black car in his garage still had the black overcoat he wore when he killed Alex, with the blood on the hem dried and hardened. A second phone belonging to Alex was also found in the vehicle. Alongside it was a handwritten note resting on the coat: "The police must hurry," a challenge from a man who was out of control and reckless. The case had transformed into a deadly battleground that the police would continue until they captured him. A new war had begun. The case is based on a true story in Atlanta, Georgia, USA.